from GCA. This is Jyoti, the faculty from or the facilitator from GCA, addressing you on the third day. So today we have ethical hacking and penetration testing as the topic. Yesterday we looked into the type of cybersecurity domains, and one of the domain was penetration testing and application security and all. So today we will look into the different tools which are technologies and methodologies for ethical hacking and penetration testing. So we will start with today's session. So the learning outcomes today, by the end of today's session, we will understand what is ethical hacking and what is penetration testing and what are the steps involved, right? And we also should know the benefits and usage. We should know how we decide what are the assets which have to go through the penetration testing. What is the frequency for penetration testing? How do we identify the perimeter of a network and then subject it to penetration testing from internet, right? So we will understand what are the steps involved in penetration testing and ethical hacking. We will understand the benefits of these and also usage of these techniques and the reports and how it will help an organization or an institution improve the security posture of the organization. We will understand the working through a demo session by an expert at the end, like I said. So after the theory discussions, we will have a demo. And after that, we will take the question answers from your side. So going forward, I hope we all know hacking and ethical hacking, the difference, right? What is a hacking? What is an ethical hacking? So if you want to test the lock of the door of your house, right? You will try to put some other keys, or you will try to make a duplicate and try to open it. So that is like testing. That is ethical hacking. But if a thief is trying to enter the house using some duplicate key, that is actually hacking with malicious intention, right? So ethical hacking is testing the network's policies, the configurations and the protocols, right? To see whether it is giving the required security to the network and the information and assets inside the network. That is ethical hacking. Okay. Penetration testing is trying to see if we can breach those controls, right? So we saw yesterday that there are, even though we have policies, even though we have configuration set up, there still can be some vulnerabilities or some open issues, right? So penetration testing is trying to test the network to see if any of these issues can be utilized for breaching into the network, right? So they are essentially the same thing, but hacking can be done using different tools. Penetration testing can be done using different tools. The output will be different, right? The hacking will be like, the output will be binary. It will say, yes, we could get into using this methodology. We could get into this, right? But penetration testing tools give more information with respect to why it was possible to penetrate and what is the remediation or what is the action to be done to close or to make it more secure, right? So ethical hacking, it says, it uses hacking techniques with permission to find security weakness in a system or a network. I don't know, but you would have heard about red team exercises, blue team exercises and all. So red team exercise is where we get approval to test. So there are red team exercises done even for the physical security. So people try to tailgate. People try to come and talk to the security guard to allow them to come inside and all. So it is techniques with permission to find security weaknesses. So they try to see technical weaknesses. They try to see human behavior based weaknesses in a system, right? In physical security. In network, they try to see whether you have a router which has some open protocol, open ports, right? Whether you have a switch which has a unused port where you can connect a cable and connect your laptop. I remember in one of the cases, during an audit, the auditor asked about whether you have secured your wireless connection. And we said, yes, we showed them all that. Then I was not the auditor, I was the auditee. Okay. Then we showed them all that configuration. So he said, okay, let me check. So he took his laptop, he opened the Wi-Fi, scanned for available networks, and he tried to connect into the network to see whether it is allowing him permission, it is giving him permission to connect into the network, right? So that is called ethical hacking, trying to see whether the security posture is sufficient, right? Or there are any weaknesses which will help us to strengthen the security. Now, what is penetration testing? So yesterday we saw about the source code testing and the dynamic testing and all. The source code testing is actually white box testing because you have the code for an application though, but I'm just trying to tell you. The dynamic testing is like a full black box testing. It just gives you, it just tests on the functionality of the application or of the infrastructure, right? Penetration testing is actually a gray box testing. It allows you to test the application while it is running or the network while it is in use, right? And it also gives you visibility to which are the components, which are the modules, etc. So this is a proactive approach. That means we do penetration testing on a periodic basis to identify if there are any vulnerabilities which will create issues against the real world attacks. So we know the attacks, we saw the threat vectors, we know the different types of attacks that are possible, right? So whether security professionals can simulate those attacks in this setup, in this infrastructure setup with network devices, with servers, with application, with operating system, right? All those things. A network has all these components. So penetration testing is a proactive approach and it identifies if there are any issues, and those issues have to be remediated or those issues have to be closed in a timely manner so that there are no real attack utilizing that vulnerability, right? So penetration testing is done in a periodic way. So what an organization generally does is they have processes to define the criticality of their assets. So if an asset is very critical, they do penetration testing once in 3 months or once in 6 months, again depending on the business objective, right? If their service level agreements are very stringent, if they have to be available all through, then they do it once in 3 months. If it is a business which has fallback mechanisms, then they can do penetration testing even once a year. So the periodicity of penetration testing, the assets which have to be subjected to penetration testing will be decided and will be finalized depending on the criticality of those assets to support the business operation, right? So that is penetration testing. Now, what is the difference between vulnerability assessment and penetration testing? We hear VAPT, right? Everywhere we hear VA and PT referred together. They go together, like GRC, governance, risk and compliance, go together. Like that, VA and PT. But VA and PT are different. They're not the same, right? So we will see what is the difference. So for vulnerability assessment, we have to identify vulnerabilities and prioritize remediation. That is what vulnerability assessment helps us to do. But penetration testing is, they identify vulnerability, they try to exploit vulnerability to assess real world attack. So if the vulnerability assessment will give us a report saying that the password is not strong enough, right? But penetration testing, the tool will try to hack into the system by using some password cracker to see whether the password can, how quickly the password can be cracked. And then it gives what is the strength of the password, right? VA is at a surface level, even though it covers all the surface, it is broad, but it is at a surface level only. It tries to see what are the open vulnerabilities. So if you look at a house inside a big compound, right? So the thieves trying to find out where are the doors, which are the windows, which can be opened from outside for us to get entry. So that is VA. So it identifies the vulnerability, right? It identifies and say this door is very weak. If I kick on it, it will open. So it will give that priority also, that this you have to address first, right? So it is broad, but at a surface level. But if it is penetration testing, they will do all the VA, and they will also say that if you try to enter through this door, there are people sitting there, or there is a CCTV there which will capture your movement, right? So penetration testing from a technical perspective, it will say that this particular vulnerability can be utilized by a threat, which is like SQL injection is a threat. So that can be, that is possible because of this vulnerability in your application, right? You're getting access to the mail server and read all the mails. It is possible because there is no encryption in the mail server. The authentication to get into the mail server is weak, right? So penetration testing actually gets into and then tries to utilize the vulnerabilities, right? What is the outcome of a VA? It gives a list of vulnerabilities with severity rating. So VA report gives you there are 20 vulnerabilities. 3 are critical, 7 are high, 15 are medium, and the remaining are low. So they will give you that, saying that if this particular vulnerability is utilized, then the impact is going to be high, right? So penetration testing will give the proof of exploitation also. VA will just say that this is prone for exploitation and the impact will be high. But in penetration testing, the penetration test tool will actually exploit that vulnerability and say that I could do this, right? So they could do that and give proof of exploitation also. Now the risk of VA is, the risk is low because there is no exploitation involved. So it is not a invasive test. It is a test at the outer boundary perimeter only. But penetration testing is a very it's a test which will actually impact the system, because it gets into the system. It may make changes to the configuration. So if you have to do a penetration testing, then you have to actually take an image of your setup and then test it in that image only. You should not test it in your exact production environment, right? So penetration testing is invasive. So the risk of the impact is high in penetration testing. So generally when you do penetration testing, they don't do on the actual production environment, but they take an image of that production environment and keep it as a test environment and test it there, right? And whatever has to be remediated will get tested in the test environment first, and then those changes will be migrated to the production environment, right? So that is why it is saying that the risk is higher. So we have to take care of keeping all backups before we get into penetration testing, because we don't want to lose any data or we don't want to lose any configuration, right? VA is ideal for compliance and security hygiene, and it is a continuous assessment. PT is for validating defenses, uncovering real attack paths. That's what we were saying. So PT will validate the defenses. It will uncover the real attack path. So it will take an attack. With that attack, it will identify whether that vulnerability is exploitable or not. Okay. But VA will just give the assessment. It will give a report which says these many high vulnerabilities are there, these many medium are there and all. So if you look at, if you check internet, there is something called National Vulnerability Database, NVD. So all the vulnerabilities which are found out through different tests, that gets listed in that National Vulnerability Database. So when we get the VA report, they give us the vulnerability and they also give us the number of the NVD, number from the NVD database, which says what is the remediation, what we have to do, or what we have to be careful, what is the risk that we are carrying, etc. Right? VA report actually gives us a relationship to the National Vulnerability Database. Okay? PT report exactly gives us what can be exploited. What is it that can be lost? What is it that can be, like, the credibility loss of the organization also can be visible from penetration testing. That is why penetration testing, I told you, is a gray box testing. It also looks at the boundary and it will do some invasive testing also, right? So penetration testing is, again, it gives a proof of exploitation as well. So these are the key differences between VA and PT. Now, what are the steps involved in penetration testing? So I told you that it is actually a very critical activity wherein we have to ensure the test is not creating any damage to the system, right? It is not creeping. It's not bringing in new risk to the system. So what all things we have to do? We have to do a planning and preparation. That is where we take the image, we take the copy of that, we take all those things, we create a test environment, right? That is what we do in planning and preparation. And then we do, in when we do planning and preparation, we are coming out with a similar system which when tested will give us the actual thing that is part of the application. So if you test that, you will know, like when we come out with a, like suppose you want to invest in an apartment, all these apartment guys will keep a prototype of apartment, right? So that we can see it and decide whether everything is as per our like or not. So like that, this image will give us the exact replica of the running application, right? So the second step is called reconnaissance. Reconnaissance is a very important step. It is actually gathering all the information like architecture, like the interfaces, like which are the ports that are open, which are the applications which provide input to this application, this network, which are the applications or networks which consume the processed information from this application or network. So reconnaissance is understanding the application's architecture, understanding the design of the application, right? So with that, it will be able to understand what are the potential vulnerabilities or potential issues and what will be the impact of any issue on that particular application, right? So reconnaissance is also a very important activity. So we have to take a long time in doing reconnaissance because we have to understand that application architecture as a tester, sitting along with the architect, and then decide the test cases, then decide the plan of testing, etc. Right? Then we have to do the scanning and enumeration. So what is scanning and enumeration? We actually do the scan, right? We do the testing and we identify the different vulnerabilities, and with that identified vulnerabilities, we try to enumerate, or we try to get all the related issues also. So suppose your password is not strong enough. So we will identify through that. Suppose if you have an SSO, single sign-on, that means if the password is not strong, anybody entering into the network can reach anywhere, right? So they try to enumerate what will be the impact as a whole, right? Through this, if this vulnerability is exploited, that is enumeration. Then the scanning output or the scanning observations are assessed through vulnerability assessment. So these tools actually get the input from the National Vulnerability Database. That is why we say that the latest version of tools are to be used. So the latest version will have the download of information from the latest version of National Vulnerability Database. And these tools also will have updates. So when you update the tool, you will get the next version, which will have the new vulnerabilities also added to. So the tool will assess those vulnerabilities. So scanning and enumeration will identify the vulnerability. The tool will assess the vulnerability and say these are critical, these are high, these are medium, like that, right? So they will have assessment of vulnerability by looking at what is the likelihood of exploitation, what is the impact of exploitation, and then they will come out with vulnerability assessment. Then comes step 5, which is exploitation. So you identify that you have 10 vulnerabilities. So you see whether these vulnerabilities can be exploited from internet, right? There may be a vulnerability which says that a particular port is open, but if that port is not allowing you to access through that port and the port requires a multi-factor authentication, then exploitation will fail, right? So you will say that there is a vulnerability, but we could not exploit it because there was an alternate control on it, right? There was a multi-factor authentication, which is an alternate control, which actually prevented exploitation of that vulnerability, right? So assessment has to be done, exploitation has to be done. Then post-exploitation, we have to decide which all were exploited, which all could not be exploited, right? We have to do a causal analysis on why some could be exploited, why some could not be exploited. So we have to come out with all the details. Then we go into reporting. So in the reporting, the tool helps in creating reports also, right? We just have to review and refine in case required. So in the reporting, they will say, right, in this IP address or in this domain, this particular asset or this particular device had this vulnerability. It could be exploited, and the result of exploitation is this high, right? So the report will give everything. That is what the step of reporting that we have to do. And then that report has to be given to the risk owner or the network team or the server team or the infrastructure team of the organization for them to come out with a remediation plan and a follow-up plan. So what happens is the report of penetration testing is given to the organization. Generally, penetration testing is done by a third party, by another organization, right? Suppose I am running, suppose it is GCA's portal that we want to subject to penetration testing. And GCA calls an organization, say, XYZ Consulting. So XYZ Consulting does the penetration testing. They give the report to GCA. Now GCA has to come, GCA will have a policy saying this is my technical vulnerability remediation policy. So what GCA will do, they will decide their remediation plan, right? They will decide what generally happens in remediation is there is something called low hanging fruits. That means you may have some low issues, but that low issues, there may be multiple occurrences. So if you correct one of that, you will be able to close multiple occurrences of some low issues. That is called low hanging fruits. So you will be able to address it quickly, even though it is not critical or high. We will be able to bring down the number of vulnerabilities easily. So your remediation plan, your follow-up plans will look for low-hanging fruits first, and then look for the most critical ones. Most critical ones, you should have a remediation plan. Sometimes, suppose I have a legacy system. I have a system which is running in mainframe, or I have a system which is running in Windows NT, the old version of Windows, right? I will not be able to upgrade that system because the application running in that system is compatible only with that Windows version. So I have a reason that I will not be able to remediate that. So what do? I come out with a remediation plan and I put that as an exception, and I get approval from management that there is a risk. I am owning this risk. I am ready to carry that risk because I don't have a plan to upgrade now. And I have a plan to migrate the application from this legacy system to a new system in the coming 2 years, right? So that is a remediation plan that generally comes from legacy systems. So the remediation has to follow GCA's policies, right? GCA's policies should be followed, and then they have to come back to the XYZ consulting saying that we have done all this remediation. Can you do a rescan and verify whether those vulnerabilities are closed and the exploitations is not possible, right? So you do a rescan also. So any VA or PT goes through a minimum of 2 scans or 2 tests. One is as is, and one is after some basic remediations are carried out. Okay, so the final step is remediation and follow-up. Now, follow-up is, so whenever you take an exception, it goes into the governance mechanism. It goes into your reporting structure. So in every monthly report or quarterly report, you go and report to your management saying that I am carrying this risk. I know there is a problem with my application, but at this point, I have limitations. I cannot upgrade it. So every month you go and say that, right? So when you go and repeat that every month, the management will also speed up giving you the budget for upgrades, giving you the necessary resources for upgrade, etc. Right? So that is what comes in remediation and follow-up. Okay. So these are the steps involved in penetration testing. Now, what are the penetration testing methodologies, right? I mentioned about black box, white box, and gray box. So these are the penetration testing methodologies. What is the meaning of black box? They don't know what is inside at all. It just simulates an attack to the application without knowing what is there inside, right? That is black box testing. So black box testing is done by tools while the application is running without really understand what is the design of the application, what is the architecture of the application, what are the various interfaces, what is the tech stack of the application, or in a server, in a network configuration, they will not know whether you have a Windows server, whether you have a Linux server, what type of firewalls do you have. They don't know anything. They have no visibility to the network diagram, right? They just look at the internal system. They just look at the system as a whole and try to penetrate into it, right? That is black box testing. So the black box testing is real world simulations of external attacks, ethical hacking challenges. So there are bug bounty exercises. I hope you have heard, and some of you would have participated also. So these big players like Microsoft, Oracle, SAP and all, what they do is they publish bug bounty exercises. So what they say is, this is my application, beta version. I am giving you permission to hack into the application. If you succeed in hacking, and if you tell me what is the issue that is in the application, then I will give you a prize. That is a bounty, right? So the bug bounty applications actually allow users to hack into the system to find out the issues, and depending on the capability of the user in finding out the issues, the user will get a reward. That's bug bounty, right? So it is always black box testing. So that means we won't know what is inside. We will not see the data. We will not see the design, because those are all their patents, right? Those designs are the copyright of that organization. It is their trade secret. So they will not share any of that. But they will say this in this server, I have hosted this application. You try to hack into the application and tell me what is the strength of the application, whether it is strong enough, whether it is it can be hacked into, is something that you have to test and let me know. There are many applications which are broken by generally the students, the engineering students, or even there are some school students or science students also who have done that. So if you have that bend to identify issues, you will be able to do black box testing and find out issues in any of the application. But please don't practice it in a running application, because it will not be taken as ethical hacking or penetration testing if you are not getting first prior approvals. Okay. Then comes white box testing. So yesterday we looked into SAST, the source code, static application security testing. So if the tester has full knowledge of the system, right? They have the design, the tech stack, they understand the source code, they have the network diagrams, network maps. So if the tester has full knowledge and the tester is trying to exploit each of the touch points, right? They know what is the access points, what are the levels of access. So the user, the tester understands all these things and tries to exploit. So that is a white box testing, right? So the tester has complete knowledge, right? Now, what are the examples? Internal audits, right? So when suppose I do an audit to one of your institution, right? I am coming and auditing. So what I tell you, you give me your network diagram, you give me the architecture of the design, you give me your policies, you take me through to look at the physical location and all those related access control mechanism, right? So I get all the details, all the access, and then I test. So internal audit is one of the white box testing. Code review, we have the code with us. So code review is a white box testing. Compliance testing. Suppose I am going for ISO 27001 testing audit. So I get all the details related to the controls and then I test. So that is also, it's like an audit, right? Compliance testing is like an audit. So that is all coming under white box. Now, what is gray box? Part of the information is available, part is not available, right? So tester has partial knowledge, but not everything. That is gray box. So the tester will know that these are the touch points, this is the interfaces, these are the tech stacks, right? But the tester will not have the complete architecture or the design, right? Or in case of a network, in case of an enterprise network, the tester will not have the network diagram. But the tester will know that this is the perimeter, there is a firewall. I mean, this is how the firewall is hardened, right? Certain things will be given to the tester prior to the testing itself. So tester will have limited knowledge. So they will have to, and they will be given access to test, right? So the tester will be given a normal user access. So tester will try to enumerate, right? He will try to escalate his privilege into an admin super user and try to see if he can do something, right? So he is given limited knowledge, and he will try to enumerate and come out with various other issues also, right? So the use cases, the gray box testing actually simulates insider threats by users with some level of access, right? So that is where I told you that red team exercises. So you bring in people, you give them certain information and you tell them, keeping this in mind and keeping the industry required controls, you do the test and give us the weak points, right? That is what gray box testing is all about. Okay. Now, what are the different penetration testing tools that are available in the market, right? For testing tools for different cybersecurity testing, right? We looked into the various cybersecurity requirements. So what are the tools? So for network test security, the tools are Nmap, Nessus, Metasploit, Wireshark, EtherCap, AirCrack, and all these things. So see, many of these tools give you N-2 version or N-3 version for academic purposes. So your college, if your college can set up a lab for penetration testing, for making students do penetration testing in your own applications or in applications which are available in internet, which are kept open for people to test, right? So you can get some of Nessus. We have an open version also, I think, or you will get an older version for academic purposes. So you can get these tools and then practice in your lab setup to see how these tools are capturing the different vulnerabilities or how they are able to exploit those vulnerabilities and give you the exploited report, right? The attacks that could be, attacks that were done exploiting the vulnerabilities. Application security, there is Burp Suite, OWASP SAP, Nikto, SQL Map, WFUS. These are the application security tools. There is an open source tool called SonarQube, right? If you take SonarQube, you can again use it for source code testing also. So SonarQube is one of the very commonly used source code testing tool, because source code testing you have to do very frequently, right? You keep modifying your code before you release a version, right? Before you release a particular version of application, you will make multiple changes, or you will do lot of you will do unit testing, you will do integration testing, you will finally do user level testing and all. So at each level there will be some changes done. So if you take a open source tool, it is easy for you to do multiple rounds of testing. So SonarQube you can take down. That is a open source static application security testing tool, right? For cloud security, we have Scout Suite, Prowler, Cloudsploit, Patbot, and all. So if you host an application in cloud, right, these tools allow us to check whether the application hosted in cloud is secure, whether the cloud is ensuring that the servers or the connectivity or the interfaces are hardened, right? So cloud security tools check the hardening practices used by the cloud service provider. Now, endpoint security. So your endpoints like your laptops, your desktops, your network devices, those can be tested by Cobalt Strike, Empire, Velociraptor, right? There are multiple tools that can be used to test your endpoint security. So you can test whether antivirus is getting updated, whether your system USB drive, CD drive are all blocked, whether the BIOS password is there, whether the disk encryption is there, what is the level of rights given to the user, what is the browser security, right? All those things can be checked using endpoint security tools. IoT security. Like yesterday we looked into IoT security, firm analyzer, right? So IoT has got the devices, the Internet of Things, right? Those devices. So the firmware of those devices have to be checked, right? Shodan, IoT Inspector, Routersploit. So these are tools which will test IoT security. We have then mobile security. So mobile security is, again, yesterday we saw how a mobile application has to be secured, how mobile has to be secured, how the patches to the mobile, the updates to the mobile has to be frequently pushed, or the user has to be told that they have to do it, how the application has to verify whether the version of the mobile application, mobile operating system is suitable, right? What is the security, the screen lock, etc. So mobile security talks about all those things. So the tools are MobSF, Drozer, Frida, Quark, and all are the tools which are used in mobile security, right? Now, data security, again, very important, right? Yesterday we saw how data is the most valuable and most important asset in any of the setup, in any institution, in any organization, in any enterprise. The data that is being processed is the most important asset, right? So data security can be tested using Hashcat, John the Ripper, VeraCrypt, OS Forensics. Now, Hashcat, I think you know hashing algorithm, right? So data security can be tested by hashing or by doing something called checksum. So what Hashcat does is, at the source level, it creates a hashing of the data. And then the data is sent to the destination. The hash number also is sent to the destination. There, the data hash number is again verified, whether it is true. Then it is unencrypted, and then we will know that it is the same data that was sent from the center. So hashing and checksum algorithms are used for testing the correctness of the data that is being transmitted. Now, John the Ripper, actually, as the name says, it looks for man in the middle, right? It looks to see if there is any way the data in transit can be stolen or can be modified, right? So that is that too. VeraCrypt, again, tests a cryptography, right? OS Forensics, tests for the steps that are taken in encrypting, steps that are taken in transmitting, steps that are taken. So it brings in visibility to each of the steps so that we will be able to know where something goes wrong, right? Then comes identity and access management. So we have tools to check. I test identity and access management tools, Hydra, Medusa, Kerberoot, Bloodhound, and Mimikatz. So they check to see whether role-based access is given correctly, right? The accesses in single sign-on are managed properly. Multi-factor authentications are managed properly. All those things are tested by these tools, right? Then comes operational security. So operational security is, we saw yesterday, it is actually security of the whole setup, right? So you have a security operations center for monitoring, for responding to any anomaly, right? So Splunk is a SIM tool, a security event and incident management tool, right? So what happens in Splunk is, Splunk identifies every transaction that happens in a particular asset, and it has a list of approved transactions. So if there is any anomaly, it will create an alert, right? Logarithm is another one, Simulate is another one, Atomic Red Team is another one. So these are all these are all like SIM tools which will monitor the setup, the application, the server, the network perimeter for any anomaly, for any unapproved ping, and then raise that as an alert, right? So these are operational security tools. Then comes the critical infrastructure security for ICS and SCADA and all. So there are tools which are used in the normal IT, which can be expanded to be used in critical infrastructure security, like Metasploit, Red Seal, GRFICS toolkit, Nozomi, Network Guardian, etc. So these tools can monitor multi-operating systems and multiple types of devices, right? So it is not only the typical IT asset that are monitored, but in a critical infrastructure security, you have machines, you have huge machines, you have conveyor belt, you have robots many a time, right? So the softwares, the embedded systems that are there in those applications to run the devices, those are also tested. So these applications which are used for testing critical infrastructure security helps us in testing ICS and SCADA applications and all in various power generation systems, oil and gas facilities, defense related facilities, right? Space research centers. So all these places we use such testing, right? So this is penetration testing tools. What are the legal and ethical considerations in penetration testing? So can everybody do penetration testing? So that's what earlier I just mentioned, that you should, like, for a penetration testing, we should have consent taken. We should get approvals, right? We should get the part of the information should be made available from the customer. So GCA, the XYZ Consulting, from XYZ Consulting, I should approach GCA. I should ask them, what is your perimeter? Can you give me a base idea about your organization, the IP addresses that you are using, right? Where all it is located. Give me a base access, right? So there has to be clear written consent and authorization obtained, right? So what is the law which mandates that? So in IT Act, sections 43 and 66 mandates that anybody and everybody cannot do penetration testing. You should get proper authorization. There should be a contract written between you and your customer that you are giving a service of penetration testing, and you will be giving the deliverable of the service is a report. And based on the remediation of the report, you agree to do a rescan or the retest also, right? And the ethics of the testing is just test, do not create any harm, do not misuse any privileges given, right? Do not take data and use it for social engineering purpose or sell it. You know, there were many instances of many incidents reported where testers like this or people who were supporting organization, they misuse the access to the data. So if it, as a tester, I am able to hack into an application, I am able to see, suppose I am able to hack into the payroll of an organization. So I am able to see what is a typical payroll of that organization. So if I go and give that information to somebody in social media, then what was treated as confidential in that organization, I am misusing, right? So do no harm in any sense. That is the ethics behind penetration testing. Now, what is the impact if you are testing without consent? It is called illegal hacking. It's not ethical hacking, it is actually hacking. And the customer can raise a complaint. They can sue us, right? GCA here can sue XYZ Consulting saying that I never authorized XYZ Consulting to audit, to test me. So how did they come and test me, right? So IT Act again says that unauthorized access and hacking is not permitted. So there is a professional code of ethics which is given in ISC squared, which is also given in EC Council, which says before you test, you have to ensure these things are taken care of. And while you test, you have to ensure that you report a vulnerability, you don't misuse a vulnerability, right? So the code of ethics is already listed so that the privilege given or the permission given is not misused, right? And then for penetration testing, we have to define the scope. We have to say duration and method. So as from XYZ Consulting, I should talk to GCA. I should say that I am using these tools. I will do the testing from today, 10 o'clock at night for 3 days, right? Then I will close it. So I will test it for a period and I will test it against OWASP vulnerabilities or against the vulnerabilities in National Vulnerability Database, or I will use MITRE framework for testing. So I should say what is the scope, what is the method, and what is the duration, right? So the laws here are GDPR and HIPAA with respect to personal information, PCI DSS with respect to payment card industries, data security standard. So even when we are giving the scope, we should say that we will not look into unencrypting personally identifiable information or health information or payment card information, right? We will see whether the encryption is strong enough or not, but we will not go into sensitive data field and try to encrypt, right? So the laws and compliances clearly say that we should maintain confidentiality and integrity of the data that we are accessing for testing, right? So the ethics is maintain confidentiality, right? Do not misuse any access that we get. Do not scope creep. It is called scope creep, right? Scope creep means I am getting an approval from GCA for testing and I am doing more than that. That is also not allowed. If I get a scope approved, I should use only that scope for testing, right? I should not go into seeing if there is any other module which is left, which I may be doing with good intention, but that is not appreciated. So whatever is written in the contract, only that has to be taken as the final phase for doing the testing. Just a minute, Ari. Okay, so going forward, what are the emerging trends, right? What are the emerging trends in penetration testing and in vulnerability assessment? So we just looked into red team and blue team exercises. So red team and blue team are the testing teams who do the testing, right? Simulated attack. The red team actually tries to attack and blue team defends. So there is a red team, there is a blue team. So red team finds out vulnerabilities and tries to exploit. Blue teams brings in alternative controls and finds mechanisms to address those vulnerabilities, right? So red team and blue team exercises are two sides of the same test. One tries to push, the other tries to stop pushing, right? So simulated attack by red team, defense by blue team, right? So what is the purpose of red team and blue team exercise? So the red team actually tries to find what are the real-time vulnerabilities and the methods to exploit, and blue team finds out what are the ways to stop exploitation, right? Suppose the red team could exploit. The blue team's responsibility is to see how quickly it can respond and it can remediate. So if the red team is trying to create a phishing email, for example, right, and send it to all the people, and some people are trying to click that phishing link without proper diligence, and then it goes to a phishing website, right? So the blue team's responsibility is whichever user is actually clicking on that phishing link, that particular user's credentials have to be isolated. So blue team immediately comes out with defense mechanisms by which blue team is isolating the risk, right? So the red team and blue team works together sometimes. Sometimes an organization will engage only red team to find out the issues in the beginning, right? like we know, there are levels of maturity. So in the initial level of maturity, they do only red team to identify what are the issues. Then after doing 2-3 rounds of red team exercise, they bring in the blue team also to know whether the issue identified by the red team can be immediately blocked by the blue team, right? That is what red team and blue team exercises are. Then the latest of late, there is a technology called purple team, right? So there is a purple teaming, means you bring in a team which will act both as red and blue team. So they compare notes, they share insights, and together they bring controls to improve the security posture. So purple team means it's single team. They do the test and they also defend, right? So purple team actually brings in the vulnerability. They also improve the security controls, right? So by doing purple teaming, what we can do is we can enhance the speed of detection, look at how quickly we can respond, and we can also look at how the effectiveness of a teamwork help us improve our security controls, right? So that is purple teaming. Now, how AI can be used in improving penetration testing? Or yesterday again, we saw about AI-based testing tools, right? We saw how AI helps us in testing. AI helps us in dealing with huge volume of data, right? So automated penetration testing tools uses AI ML driven tools to automate vulnerability scanning and exploitation. So they can learn from the vulnerability and they can create larger pools of vulnerabilities quickly, and they will also be able to direct you to the exact position of vulnerability so that you can close it, you can remediate it quickly, right? So this speeds up testing, increases coverage, and reduces human error. So if in a security operations center, if people are watching for alerts, there is a possibility of a human error. We may just for a second look elsewhere and the alert will be missed, right? But in artificial intelligence case, the human error impact is reduced, or even you can say it is removed completely if the artificial intelligence tool is correctly configured and implemented, right? Then is bug bounty program. I told you initially about the bug bounty program. So the bug bounty program is external security researchers are provided rewards to report and find vulnerabilities. So if you search, you will know about bug bounty program. You can test that application and you can provide the vulnerability, provide a report to the owner of the application. Then you will be getting a reward, right? So it is also called crowdsourcing. So the organization, suppose I'm a startup, right? I have only 5 people who are developing the application. So I don't have to engage testers. I can open it for crowdsourcing. That means I'm opening it out for anybody and everybody, right? They just have to register in a place and then they can test the application. So crowdsourcing actually reduces my cost, right? So, and crowdsourcing also helps in getting mistakes which are missed by internal testing teams, right? So if you allow an external person, you know, right, third party, that is why we said penetration testing has to be done by third party. So if the designer himself does the testing, there are certain assumptions in the designer's mind that he has secured certain things. So the designer will keep those assumptions, and with that he will be testing, because of which there is a possibility of missing out certain vulnerabilities, right? So bug bounty programs also helps in identifying things which otherwise may get missed out, right? Microsoft actually publishes bug bounty initiators very frequently on its Office 365 environment, new versions of Outlook or new versions of these things and all. So there are bug bounty initiatives that are happening. So these are emerging trends. Now we will look into what are some typical incidents, and we will see how these could have been prevented, right? We can see how incidents happened and how, if we had done timely vulnerability assessment and remediation, these could have been prevented. So this is a very famous breach. Equifax data breach is a very famous thing because the learning from this is used in many places, right? The impact was huge and the learning from this is used in many places. So Equifax is actually a consumer credit reporting agency. So that means the data that it deals with is personal data, right? So there is credit score. I think we all know about CIBIL score in India. So like that, in US they have, or in other countries, they have credit scores. So if I have to apply for a loan, for a car or for a home loan or something, they have to check my credit score, right? So Equifax actually does credit scoring. So they have access to data from different consumer accounts or consumer credit card agencies. Suppose I have account in 3 banks and I have 2 credit cards. So Equifax will have access to all my data, right? Using my PAN number, or if it is in US, using the social security number. So it will have access to all those data. So what happened was, the Equifax conducted a vulnerability test, and there was a vulnerability that was found out in the web application because they did not patch an Apache framework, right? The Apache framework was an old version. So they did not upgrade that Apache framework, and that did not come into their visibility also. See, that is where I told you, for organizations, there should be policies which run around the vulnerability management. So the policy should take all these vulnerabilities from the penetration testing, and there has to be a tracker where there are actions defined, there is timelines defined, and there is status defined, right? If there are challenges, they are also defined. So what happened here is, the test had identified a vulnerability, but they missed patching that application. So they did not address it in time. So what happened? There was a breach through that vulnerability, and a huge amount of data, personal information of 147 million people was exposed to the hackers or exposed to the malicious players, right? So they could identify after a long period. I think it was only after 3 or 4 months, they could identify that this particular vulnerability was continuously getting exploited, and all the data that is stored in their database are being copied by some vulnerability, and the data breach has happened for, in a total of 147 million people's personally identifiable information was affected, right? So the breach could have been prevented if Equifax had a policy on periodic vulnerability assessment. It had a policy in timely remediation, right? So they did not, or rather they failed to address the vulnerability in a timely manner. So because it was marked as slow, or because it was it required some approvals, or it required some design changes and all, they could not do it clearly at the right time, right? So that is why all the information security or cyber security standards say that any remediation, any vulnerability closure, or any audit observation, or any risk management has to be done keeping the impact in view. So you should know, if the lock of the front door is not working, it is having a huge impact. If the lock of a room inside is not working, it is okay. We can wait till that lock is repaired, right? So like that, at the perimeter, in your firewall, if there is an issue, at your perimeter, in the server which is facing, internet facing, there is an issue, or in your gateway where you connect your internet service provider, there is an issue. The SLA, the timeline to address those vulnerabilities should be very stringent. The organization should get leadership commitment and getting approval for closing those vulnerabilities within, say, 3 days or 5 days, like that. It should be done within days. It should not go into weeks or months, right? So this is a real world example. If we read in detail, we will understand how this was identified and what all happened and how the final visibility on how this many data was stolen came in, and what was the penalty on Equifax for creating the breach of this many personal data, personal information, which went into the hackers' hands and all, right? So this is one of the examples of misuse of vulnerabilities, right?
Jyoti, if you allow, I would want to add some more real world incidents, particularly relevant to India,
Sure.
Because we're on the topic. And it's important that we kind of have this context as to how something as basic as regular VAPT exercises can actually prevent the data from being leaked, from the organization reputation being compromised, and of course all the other effects that come with it. If you look at a few examples in the years just gone by, last 2 to 3 years, we have seen some very significant cyber attacks, starting of course with very popular BharatPe, which was hacked in August 22. We had this digital financial services provider experiencing a serious data breach, exposing the personal data of around 37,000 users. And we absolutely understand that this information included sensitive details such as usernames, passwords, including transaction data. And it actually not just was an activity which went about in a day or so. It spanned several years of data in just a moment. And similarly, we had another very popular incident, which was a cyber attack on AIIMS, New Delhi. This was in December 22, when All India Institute of Medical Sciences suffered a significant cyber attack, leading to the encryption of about 1.3 terabytes of data across 5 servers. This incident was attributed to unauthorized network access. And, to your point, when we actually do pen testing and vulnerability assessment, this is what we are trying to see. Is it easy to get access into your network? And it also was, allocated further to inadequate network segmentation. While no ransom was demanded in this case, the attack underscored vulnerabilities in critical healthcare infrastructure. So these are also, important to note, that sometimes what we do not give a lot of importance to, like a basic information security audit, including vulnerability assessment or penetration testing, there could be repercussions which are quite serious. If we also look at the Rail Yatri data breach, now in India, which is a railway-centered, transportation system, an e-booking service for Indian Railways faced a data breach in December 22. that resulted in over 30 million user records. That's almost 3 crore users' data being compromised. This breach was also revealed when a threat actor leaked the data on a cybercrime forum, although the reality that no sensitive customer data was compromised. Now, this also is again highlighting the ongoing cybersecurity challenges faced by online platforms when it comes to booking or when it comes to the onboarding of different information related to the reservation systems and what have you. Now, going forward, while these were very important, there have been many more. There have been Zivame, there have been Cloud SEK. Motilal Oswal incident again in 23 was quite serious because it was the financial services, and it was having very different kind of identification to a Lockbit group, which was known for its extortion tactics. So this attack involved malicious activities detected on employee systems. The company reported no disruption to operations, but definitely they did deploy some extortion tactics. The issue was promptly addressed and the services continued as normal. But this was public information. I'm sure it did have some impact on the data and the services in the ecosystem of the financial services provider. One again important and popular incident was Sun Pharma, wherein the Sun Pharmaceutical Industries, which is quite a renowned player in Indian pharmaceutical sector, faced a similar cyber attack that disrupted its operations. Now, this is different from a data theft. When the operations are disrupted, this could be direct financial loss to the organization. While the company also in this case had to disclose the breach to the stock exchanges, details regarding the perpetrator and the extent of the data compromised is still unclear. Like many other cases, people, number one, do not always understand what was compromised, but even if they do, it is not always possible, to come out absolutely in open saying that, our customer data or user data or our operations data was, compromised. This incident also marked the third significant attack on the Indian drug maker. I don't know if you know, but Dr. Reddy's had also compromised, and so on and so forth. So, so when we talk about ethical hacking, penetration testing, although these things sound kind of, initial step into doing your security assessment, these become very important because they can actually prevent very serious incidents like the ones just said. I think now we have Dr. Jobin Jose amongst us. Dr. Jose, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Wali.
So welcome, Dr. Jobin Jose. Welcome to the session. And I'd be very happy to introduce you to the trainees here. Although, in fact, most of them are actually faculty members and professors, along with some students who have chosen to participate. So everyone here, Dr. Jobin Jose is Assistant Professor, Indian Institute of Information Technology, Kottayam, and he comes with notable education and experience. He's had certain good work in terms of research, in terms of publishing various articles, and today he's amongst us to showcase us the practical aspect of VAPT. Dr. Jobin Jose, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wali, for the introduction. Anyhow, actually, the time allotted to me is quite short. Okay, anyway. Within that particular timing, what could be possible, I will just deliver to you. So over the period, you already know about the penetration testing concepts from various like resource persons. So I think you have a flavor of what is the penetration testing or ethical hacking was all about. But actually, when you look into the term called ethical hacking or penetration testing, yes, could be there is a relationship. It's like it could be the we can say that penetration testing can be considered as a sub process or subsection of or a subset of ethical hacking in general. So that with that particular introduction in your mind, we'll straight away go to the demonstrations. The first and foremost thing I'm just take into consideration is there are certain tools through which how can you do the penetration testing. So hope you know the definitions of a penetration testing, right? So this could be like you're actually get into the system of others. So that was actually your. This can be done in two ways. Either you can do it in a, from an external perspective or to an internal perspective. Even a company is definitely doing this penetration testing, they can be done in both two aspects. One is they can hire people from outside and then they can actually try to open up their information or their environment for testing it. So this is through which they can actually get the vulnerable, get to understand about the vulnerability or the particular flow which is actually there in the system. So even that also can be performed within its organization as well. So in that case, they must have to like they know each and every employee who are involved in that. They must know that what is a particular environment, and there will be certain restrictions on that as well. Okay, so in our demonstrations, we are just going to say that how you can. I'll just introduce you the flavor. Okay, so how you can actually get into the system. Okay, for one particular asset. So for that, we are actually we have a given a network. In that case, what happened is definitely you know that there is an IP address that responds to that particular environment. Or in case if you know that particular system, okay, then specifically you can target for that particular system. Okay, now for doing this particular thing, we'll be looking for a particular tool called Metasploit. Okay, so what is this Metasploit is all about? It's actually a framework, is open source, which is developed by Rapid7, an organization called Rapid7. So it's almost it's open source. It's available with Kali Linux. As you know that this is a famous platform for all sort of penetration testing and ethical hacking process. So this particular OS contains this platform that is Metasploit, through which we will be able to get exploit into and using that exploit, you'll be able to get into the system control. So that's what the aim is. Okay. Along with this, the Metasploit, as I told you, this is actually a framework, like a well-known framework. Through this, we can perform the network scanning and other kind of vulnerability assessments and all those things. So it's possible to the certain extent. So what we are going to see is we just seen that what is the basic of your Metasploit and how you're going to enter into that. Okay, so prior to doing that, let me share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to you, right? Yeah, okay. Thank you for your feedback. Yeah, so let me just tell you. So these are the basic commands. I just give you a nutshell. These are the basic commands which can be useful for executing or particular performing the exploits in the Metasploit. So we have users, we have to use it. There is command called use, show, set, search, run, exploit, back, info, search, check in sessions, etc. etc. So these are the various commands which is actually related to the Metasploit. So what is the usage? How you're going to use this? Okay, when the time progresses, I will let you know. Okay, so just for your understanding, I'm just checking down, telling this. Fine. Now we will go to the machine. So this is my Kali machine that I have my own system within place. So this is my Kali machine. I put myself into the Kali machine right now. And I have another system, which again, as of now, which machine is available. Okay, so I'm just going to search for this IP addresses corresponds to the search machine possible. So this will be I know the IP address will be. So IP addresses could be, let me check whether it is pinging for me. So it could be, so my IP could be this. Hopefully this is actually pinging for me. So fine. So what exactly we are going to see right now. So okay, so as you know that as a preliminary step, whenever you're getting a particular system or whenever you're getting a particular environment, how you are actually checking for the system, whether the system is available and what are the vulnerabilities which is present in that. Okay, so for that, the famous tool that that everyone is actually using us is Nmap. Okay, but here I'm not directly going to use Nmap. Instead, I will be using, no, within the, I will be using that Nmap within the MS, so that is Metasploit, right? So how you're going to do that? Now I'm just going to do this because how to start Metasploit. Okay, so the first command I need to use is to open this or to start the Metasploit is you have to use this MSF console. Okay, so if you press enter, so it takes some time. So this is the first command. In order to activate this particular
Please
Metasploit,
increase the font size. Please, nothing is visible. It's not visible.
okay,
I think, Dr. Jose, if you can zoom in a bit, maybe.
let me check.
I mean, it's visible, but the font is too small for anybody to.
Okay, let me check what can be possible. Will that be fine? Is that okay for you, all of you?
Not much change at all.
Oh, really?
Right. It may have to be significantly increased if possible.
Okay, then in that case, what the difficult thing is, I need to go like here and there. So anyway, I will try it the maximum possible. So I think it would be fine. Will that be okay for you, or still?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, are you able to hear or no? See this right screen? Because it's actually the black screen. So that's the difficulty that maybe there for you. Okay. So now, what I just use MSF console. Okay, so for opening my Metasploit. So this could be the particular environment. So this just started. Now, what I want to do here right now. So I'm just going to perform a scanning operation on the particular IP that I have. Okay, I have an IP. So I just want to perform a scanning because I want to see that whether the system is vulnerable to me. Okay, so the particular machine that I have, machine IP, which is given to me as is 1.2 right now. So I'm going to perform a scanning out there. So for that, I'm just using Nmap. Then that followed by, we have seen that we have to use this certain command line switches corresponds to this Nmap. So along with this Nmap, we are actually using certain options. Okay, so using that, we have to perform various scans. So that depends upon the type of protocols or other things that you're using it. So if you use TCP or if you use UDP, correspondingly, we have different like the options. So these options are called as command line switches. Okay, so in general terminology. So we are actually performing certain switches for this. Okay, while this progressing, I'm just telling you the meaning of the script switches that I'm using it. Okay, so the first switch I'm just using this. Okay, this is capital small s capital C. So this is actually called as script. Okay, so it's actually give you the command line options. Okay, for getting the default scripts. Okay, to check for a vulnerability. So there are the default scripts which is available in Nmap. Okay, so we are actually calling as a default script in order to check for the particular vulnerability. Okay, now I'm just going to say this next option is hyphen S capital T. So this is actually tells you are going to perform a TCP sync scan. So what is this sync scan? So you know that whenever the TCP communication is going to take place, we have to perform a three-way handshake mode, right? So in the three-way handshake mode, the first operation is you have to send a sync packet, right? So this is actually you are going to perform the scanning both by sending the sync packet. So in order to do this, we will be using this SD. Okay. Now suppose what happened is when you use this particular options, you may not be able to get that particular status of each status of each and every aspects of your system. You may not be able to get it. So sometimes what happens, it will take long time as well. So for that, again, if you want to finish it off somewhat early, then we have to perform the next command line switches, that is hyphen capital P small n. So it's actually, it gives us like remove, or it actually suppresses the host discovery. So host discovery in the sense it won't like go to the entire network and scanning the one, but okay, provided. So it actually removes the entire scanning and perform the required operation along. So this is the particular command line switches. I'm just performing it, followed by I'm just performing this 192.168.1.2. This is my IP for this machine which is given. Okay. So it's taking some time because anyway, there is a normal delay which is happening for scanning the Nmap. Even if you're giving the system, single IP, or even if you're giving multiple IP also, there's the same kind of situations is happening. Okay, so we have to wait for some time. So this is not the only command line switches which is available. We have different options, different command line switches. So depending upon what sort of packet, that is, I told you that we have used the sync packet. Similar to that, we have different sort of packets. As you know that TCP, there are 6 flags, right? Hope you know that what are the 6 flags and all. So according to that, we have different command line options as well. Still, it's a particular person, okay, who decides that what kind of the options that they need to do. So now the result has completed. So now you can see that these are the options which is available to me. Now, what happened? So it says that what is the status of this particular system. Okay, so for you can see the first thing is there is a port and the state which is there, and there's a service which is running over there. Okay, so you can see that there is a what is the port number of there. This is port number 21, and the status of the port is open, and the service which is running on us FTP. You know that that's the port number for FTP, right? 21 is the port number for FTP. Now, what you have to do here, see that the statistics, FTP server statistics, and is connected to this particular signal. My machine, that is my Kali machine right now. So what I have to do is say that no sessions are bandwidth was limit. You can see that data connection will be plain text, and it says that what is the version of FTP which is running over there. Okay, so in order to get this only, we'll be using this particular options. So here what happened, what we have to get it, it says VS FTPD 2.3.4. Right, so this is the particular service which is running on this particular port, and it says that this particular port is open. The port status we are getting it as open. So it's openness, it's ready to listen for the communication, right? So, and what is this VSFTPD 2.3.4? It's a service which is running over there. So what happened? So it says that it's there actually there gives you a status that anonymous FTP login allowed. So this is the particular vulnerability that we are actually finding out. So using this Nmap, we are just going to find out a particular scanning, and this particular scanning is the first phase of a particular, particular ethical hacking or penetration testing process, that is reconnaissance. So after this, what you are going to do, through that you'll be able to, within the single step, you'll be able to extract the vulnerability which is actually present in this. Okay, now what's our next step? So we have to check for this VSFTPD, right? So we just copy this, and here I'm just open the browser over here. I'm just open. I need to check it. What exactly we need to do with this, right? So I'm just using this. Okay, so I'm just pasting my service corresponds to this. So, and you can see that it's the first link I'm getting this VSFTPD version 2.3.4 backdoor command execution. So this particular service is vulnerable, and what sort of vulnerability that we are getting in. So and click on this particular link, and it's revealed that there is a backdoor entry. We'll be able to perform a backdoor entry for this particular system if this particular system or system if this services can be exploited. If it is exploited, then we will be able to get a backdoor entry. How we are going to perform that? So next we are going to see that. Okay. So when we got it, from this Metasploit itself, we will be able to check for any sort of modules that is available, okay, to exploit this vulnerability. Okay, so we know that there is a backdoor, right? Yes, VSFTPD 2.3.4 backdoor command execution. So we are going to search for appropriate module corresponds to this in what is a Metasploit. So how you're going to perform it? So for that, I can use the next command. Okay, this is search. Okay, so what does it exactly say that? VSFTPD. Okay, so for time being, I'm just looking for this. I'm just typing the keyword because we know that there's a service which is running over there. So I'm just checking that I'm searching for this VSFTPD module over there. So here you can see that there are two modules corresponds to this. So out of this, which one to be selected? So you know that there is a vulnerability. When we Google it, we come to know that there is a backdoor, right? So we have to select this second option. So here, how to use the second option, right? So here in this case, you can see there are numbers. Numbers corresponds to this modules, that is 0 and 1. Okay. Then the full name, either, okay, you can do or you can use this entire full name and you can copy paste it and you can utilize that, or otherwise you can use the number. Okay. So for utilizing those particular module, you can use the command called use. Okay. Use then followed by either you can put the number or you can copy the entire path, okay, and paste it along with this. So for simplicity and for easiness, here I'm just using the number. So here I'm just going to give that number as use 1. So now let's say that we will be into this Unix FTPD, VSFTPD 2.3.4 backdoor. Will that be okay for you? Now, when we are into this, we have to say how you're going to exploit it. So now what are the options which is present in this particular module we need to see. So for that, we have to use that show. Okay, the command is show, and we have to give us what are the options present in that. So for that, I'm just using this options, show options. So here in this, these are the available options for me. So here you can see that there is a host, the local, this is the client host and the client port. Okay, then proxies. Remote RHost stands for remote host and remote port, right? So the remote port is already been there because we are exploiting VSFTPD, that is port number 21 for FTP, right? So the port number is already been defined over there. So now you can say that what are the current settings corresponds to other parameters. These are parameters. So under this, there is no current settings for first 4 entries. Now you can see that the next column, that is required field, right? So in this required field, you can see that C host, C port, proxies, the value has been set as no. But what happened for our host? So you can see that the value is set as yes. So it's mandatory to give the current settings value. So what sort of values we need to give over here? What could be our remote host? So the remote host could be our machine, the vulnerable machine that we have right now. So but we don't know, for time being, the Metasploit does not know that what is the IP address of this. So we need to give this particular IP address for the vulnerable machine. So now what I have to do is we have to use the command called set, then followed by the parameter value, which is given on this, our host, then followed by what sort of IP address you need to give it. So this, my IP address would be, so the IP address has been set to this particular parameter, that is RHost. So even when you perform show options, you'll be able to see that the particular IP address has been, so sorry, I'm just making it as the IP address has been changed. So I'll need to change my IP address. So I 192.168.1.2 is right. So when you look into that, the IP addresses will be changing it. So now what I have to do is next. So now we are setting the parameter, that is our post value will be the IP addresses of the target machine right now. Okay, so this is a particular IP address. The port number is already been set. Now what we have to do? So we have to run this particular exploit because we are already there in the exploit. We are actually setting the parameter. So we need to run this particular exploit. So for that, we are just using this command called run. So you can see the backdoor service has been spawned. You can see over there. So it actually provides you a backdoor entry to the particular system. So you can see that there's a shell which is being found over there. Okay, and you can see that there is a root access. This because it's actually a Linux machine. Because of that thing, I'm getting this UID and GID, group ID, user ID and group ID. Both are 0. That 0 corresponds to the root. Okay, so if we are getting access to a root of the system, what would be then? We can do whatever we request. Okay, we can do a lot of commands, executions, and all those things will be possible, right? Okay, now see that you can last command, which is given command shell session 1 is open. Okay, so now what happened is we can, if you require, we can execute a lot of commands from this. So what here? First of all, we actually get into the system, right? Okay, so this is actually, you know that there's a Linux machine because it says that user ID and group ID, this is root. So this actually comes to our Linux machine. So we can execute some Linux commands over there, hopefully. So when I click on ls, these are the file, though these are the directories which is present in my target machine. You'll be able to see this, right? Even you can see that I'm just going to see that what is my present working directory, that is pwd. So it says root / corresponds to root, right? So this corresponds to root, and I'm just performing another command over here. Is for my, it says root, right? Even you can perform, you can create certain folder like this. Okay, so you can, within this, you'll be able to like create certain folder into that. So I can say that make directory on. Okay, so I just make a directory under the name called test. So here, so now what happened is, and again, if I put ls, you can see the new directory has been created. Instead, you can see that there is no directory, no test kind of directory which is being present for the first time when I put ls, right? You may not be able to see this. So now you can see that when I created a test directory, when you put ls for the next time, the test directory will be displayed to you, right? So these are the options you can able to perform it, okay, using this particular tool. This is actually a simple case. I'm just trying to exploit the system using a simple vulnerability which is actually present in the system. So through that, I'm able to get a backdoor entry to this system environment so that you'll be able to get an access to that. Even you can execute a lot of commands into that. Even if you want to go to any of the folder or any of the directories which is present in that, you can use that. Okay, so etc. So there's a particular directory for etc. So if you want to go to that etc, then if you put ls, then what happens? The directories, subfolders or subdirectories which is present under /etc will be displayed to you, right? So whatever possibility you can extract it. Even if you can check for its 30 folders, and you can you'll be able to find out any useful information whether it is present or not. So those kinds of information, kind of exploit, you'll be able to do that. So this is actually an ultimate aim. So how you are actually enter into the system, and what are all the things that you can extract from the system through this vulnerability. So that is the aim of the particular penetration testing or ethical hacking in general. And through that, the people may have different mentality. One thing, if they capture the information or something like that, then if it is ethical or if it a particular person truly a well-wisher, then they definitely report back to the organization or the company where we have found this particular vulnerability. Otherwise, what happened? It could be like a black hat hacker. They can do those, or they can take those information for their own good. Okay, so it's just a what you can say. It's just a demonstration to see that how you can able to get into the system, right? Even this particular Metasploit will have lot of modules which is inbuilt to that. Okay, depending upon the context, we'll be able to do this. Okay, so I'm just closing this. Okay, so it says. Okay, so I'm just checking this. Says. So I'm just go this. Okay, I'm just entered into this. Now I have to, if I want to go back to this, okay, back from this particular module, I can give it as back command. Okay, so now we are entered into Metasploit console, that is MSF6 right now. Okay, so if you want to exit further, then you can perform, or you can just type exit. Okay, so it doesn't work over here. Okay, so now just exit, then hyphen Y here. So I'm just getting into the Kali mission right now. It's fine. So now you can use it even if you are familiarized with Metasploit. You'll be able to create even the, like, have you heard about what you can say, those attacks, like kind of thing, right? So that is also part of this. You can do that. Even you can use this. You can search for the DNSs corresponds to a particular domain, and even you want to find out the subdomains corresponds to the domains. No, so that are correspondingly the module will be available in Metasploit. Use that. You can utilize those modules and you can perform the corresponding required functionality. So this is actually a powerful framework which is already pre-built within the Kali environment. And even that actually, like what happened, it removes the burden of thinking about what to do and where we need to find out the required options and all those things. It actually eases the burden. Okay, so thank you for a person listening. So let me just wind up for the session. If you have any doubt, please ask me. I'm open to questions. I think it's open. No, it's useful for you.
Good evening, sir. Sir, this is Akshat Nigam. I'm a student. I'm a BTech final year student, and I have a question regarding the Nmap. So, whenever we scan a particular IP address, we get a lot of output regarding the services and the versions that are working on that particular IP address. But usually, while we are working on some real-time machines, we don't easily get to find the vulnerabilities, or as a student, we are not able to read the output given by the Nmap clearly. So could you please help us with that?
No, first of all, I'll just tell you one thing. You are using Nmap, then along with that, you have to select the corresponding command line options. Okay, so the command line options, actually, the usage of command line options varies from person to person. That is, it's up to you that what sort of command line option that you need to do, or you need to use along with an IP address. So it's up to you. Okay, but the thing is, depending upon the command line switches, the outcome that you are actually getting it is varies. So because I use this particular options, okay, for myself, because I know that this is within a one stretch, you will be able to, I'll be able to get the particular output. Okay, but it's not always happening. So sometimes what happened is we'll be trying for certain command line switches, and sometimes what happened is it will not give you the much of the informations. So if you encounter such like a thing, then probably you could have to try with other options or other command line options which is available, because a lot of command line options are available. If you can see that nmap space hyphen h. Yes, space hyphen h here. So sorry. So here you can see that this is the help file that responds to the nmap. You can see that lot of options are there. All options are quite not quite useful always, but depending upon your context, you can use this like several commands that responds to that. But the thing is, like, you can see there is a scan techniques. You use space, hyphen small s capital S, okay, then space hyphen small s small t then capital T. Okay, these are the options. Either you can use this or you can use this, but both the things you cannot do together. So there are restrictions. So because this kind of thing, you come to know that by practice only. That you will be using this, on a trial and error basis. You'll be able to get that or get this particular. Okay, I should not use these options together like that. Okay, so there is nobody going to tell you that what kind of options you need to do this. And even when you got this particular thing, you have to see that what sort of information that you are actually getting in. Even if you perform any sort of option like the smallest capital S or small as capital T, or if you use this SC or that hyphen DN or whatever, see, ultimately you are getting certain output. So in that output, what could be the things which is being revealed? So you have to read each and every line in the particular output. Then for that, okay, for understanding this, again, the famous mechanism that you can Google it for each and every single terminology, and you have to find out the particular pathway. So this is actually a recursive process. Even if you've started performing an nmap and all those things, it's a recursive process. Sometimes you get a certain information, but you may not be in a position to extract or get to know those particular functionality or vulnerability, whatever. So again, you have to depend on or rely on the Google, and you have to see that what exactly it is. And again, slowly you will be getting to that particular understanding, and it actually open up certain ways to get into the system. It's like, in a first stretch or a first instance, you may not be able to find out the things. But the thing is that in practice, you'll be doing that. Only thing is, you are not allowed, or you are not supposed to try the things which is there in real time. Okay, but thing is, like, there are legal thing which is there. So yeah, all people are binding to legal legal law, right? So without any sort of authorization, if you perform this kinds of things, this is actually an active kind of scanning. Without any proper authorization, if you perform it, then definitely you will be getting the particular notice under BNSS. You know that what is BNSS, right? Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, right? So you'll be getting definitely you'll be getting a notice, and you have to responsible for that.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, one more question, that
Yeah.
whenever we get a shell or a Metasploit session on the Metasploit, sometimes it happens that we don't usually get the root privileges. We get the least privileges that are present. So how can we escalate those privileges? Are there any specific privilege escalation methods, or
like you can say, so there are a lot of privilege escalation methods that I can say that even a lot of things are available. You know that there are two types of privilege escalations, right? Horizontal privilege escalation and vertical privilege escalation. So the thing that you said about the privilege escalation is about vertical privilege escalation. So that means you are on the current user level, and you are going to elevate your privilege to a root user or super user. So it's like a vertical privilege escalation, right? So in that case, what happened is, what sort of vulnerability, if you want to escalate your privilege from the normal user to the higher user, okay, a lot of mechanisms are available. One such mechanism, I'll just tell you that if this particular system is vulnerable to a particular remote code executions and all those things. Okay, so that you will be able to get root access through the through what I can say, remote code executions. No. So if the particular system is vulnerable, then you can able to get certain commands, okay, through the scripts. Then you can supply it to this particular code which is more vulnerable. Through that, you'll be getting an entry. So this is one way. Lot of things are available.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And thank you, everyone. I
Thanks,
hope you found the session useful. We see you tomorrow in the module 4.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.